I used to measure my mornings by how long it took before I felt like a functioning person. Some days that number climbed uncomfortably high. I'm 83, and a large observational study following thousands of men found a measurable link between how many flavonoid-rich foods, the kind in ordinary berries, they ate and their vascular health overall, mornings included. I assumed that fog was simply the tax of being this age and never once connected it to anything I was or wasn't doing the night before. You've probably done the same thing, treated your mornings as a fixed condition rather than the downstream result of specific choices made hours earlier. That study is what connected the two for me. In a minute, I'll tell you exactly what I started eating before bed. Here's what I eventually learned. An erection depends on three systems working together: hormonal, nervous system signal, and blood flow, governed by nitric oxide. Blood flow, specifically, responds to what you eat, and certain compounds concentrated in particular foods support the health of your blood vessel lining directly, which turns out to affect far more than just one specific function. It affects circulation throughout your entire body, including whatever's happening in your brain first thing in the morning. That last part surprised me more than anything else. I'd never once connected my morning clarity, or lack of it, to circulation, always assuming mental fog was some separate issue entirely from whatever was happening lower down, when really it was all the same system, running throughout my whole body at once. These days, my mornings have genuinely never felt the same as those old foggy ones. I'm alert within minutes of waking, thinking clearly enough to do the crossword before breakfast instead of needing coffee just to focus on the clues. I'm not telling you that to brag. I'm telling you because the fog I'd accepted as permanent simply isn't anymore. I used to measure my mornings by how long it took before I felt like a functioning person again. Some days that number climbed uncomfortably high, and I never once questioned why. Here's what reframed everything else. The blood vessels involved in circulation throughout your body, including this particular function, are deeply connected. When one part struggles, it often signals struggles elsewhere too. Researchers who study this treat these signals seriously. For 3 years, I slept 3 feet away from my wife, and it felt like 300 miles. She'd fall asleep first. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, wide awake, feeling like a roommate in my own marriage. I thought something was wrong with me. It wasn't weakness, and it wasn't just age. Here's what no one ever sits a man down to explain. This isn't about willpower. It's about specific systems in your body quietly losing steam year after year, while nobody tells you it's even happening. The pills my doctor handed me gave me headaches, made my chest feel tight, and honestly, they made me feel like I needed a pill just to feel like a man. I wasn't willing to live like that. There's a gentler way to bring those systems back, without any of that. At 83, my wife and I aren't roommates anymore. I'll show you exactly what changed it in this video, and if you want the simple support I personally use, there's a free presentation linked in the description below. So here's what I started doing before bed. A small bowl of berries and citrus most evenings as a light dessert instead of anything processed or sugary. There's a large study that tracked men over years and found that those who ate the most flavonoid-rich foods, the compounds concentrated in blueberries, strawberries, and citrus, had a meaningfully lower likelihood of developing erectile difficulty than the men who ate the least. It's an observational study, and I want to be honest that it shows association rather than proof for any one man. But flavonoids are also linked to better overall vascular function, which lines up with the broader fog lifting I noticed, not just one specific area. Having it before bed became a small ritual, easy to keep because it felt like a treat rather than a chore. I added a few other pieces. A short walk most mornings in real daylight, supporting the same blood vessel lining from a different direction. Vegetables rich in dietary nitrate, feeding that same pathway further. Better sleep, since a fair share of the hormonal piece rebuilds itself overnight. Less alcohol, since it works against nearly everything else on this list when it's overdone. None of these felt dramatic on any single day. It was only looking back after a couple of months that I could actually see how much had shifted, the way you don't notice a season changing until you're suddenly standing in a different one. My wife and I have started having coffee together on the porch every morning now, something we hadn't done regularly in years. mostly
You
because
wouldn't
I used
believe
to
what
need that
happened
first
next.
hour just to feel human enough for conversation.
And then he
She said it's become her favorite part of the day, and honestly, it's become mine too, something neither of us expected when it started as just an experiment about mornings. I think about a man named Raymond who wrote in, 79, who told me his own mornings had felt foggy for so long he'd stopped remembering what clear ones even felt like until this small change brought that clarity back. He said his wife noticed before he did, the same way mine had, which seems to be a common thread among the men who write in. If you're on medication for blood pressure or your heart, please hear this clearly. Nothing here replaces your treatment, and you should never stop or change a medication on your own. Mention anything new to your doctor every time. Raymond and I ended up laughing about the fact that both our wives noticed before we did, comparing notes on exactly how many weeks it took each of us to finally catch up to what they'd already seen plainly from the outside. Raymond said it made him wonder what else she'd noticed over the years, quietly, without ever mentioning it, and that thought alone made him a little more attentive to the small things she'd been carrying without comment for far longer than just this one issue. What I want you to walk away with is this. Mornings aren't a fixed condition. They're the downstream result of choices made the night before, and changing one can genuinely change the other. I spent years treating my mornings and evenings as two unrelated compartments of the same day, never once looking backward from the fog to find where it actually started. Once I made that connection, mornings stopped feeling like something that happened to me and started feeling like something I actually had a hand in. Your erections don't disappear just because you got older. They fade when the systems behind them, blood flow, nitric oxide, hormones, energy, and recovery, slowly stop getting the support they need. Ignore that long enough, and it becomes harder to reverse. That's why I take this concentrated formula every morning. Not one ingredient trying to fix everything, but several working together to support circulation, energy, and drive from the inside out. It's a natural, doctor-backed protocol designed to support pathways your body already knows how to use. No prescription, nothing artificial. Stronger, present, confident again. And unlike the pills I tried, I didn't feel disconnected from my own body. No headaches, just steady, gradual change. My wife noticed before I even said a word. The presentation is linked right below this video. It won't replace your doctor or a healthy lifestyle. It's simply there to support your body. At 83, my wife and I aren't roommates anymore, and it's not too late for you. I used to joke that I simply wasn't a morning person, as though that were some fixed personality trait rather than a pattern I could actually influence. It's funny how comfortable that kind of label can feel, right up until you realize it was never really true to begin with, just a story I'd been telling about myself long enough to mistake for fact. I think about the man I was, measuring mornings by how long the fog took to lift. And I think about the man I am now, who doesn't have to measure it anymore. That's not vanity, that's dignity. I'd sit at the kitchen table some mornings holding my coffee without actually drinking it, just staring at nothing in particular, waiting for whatever fog had settled overnight to lift on its own schedule, which felt like it was getting slower every year. If your own mornings have ever felt like a fixed condition you never once thought to question, tell me about it in the comments below. And if this kind of before and after explanation is useful to you, go ahead and subscribe. There's more of this ahead, every single week.